That was a throwback. That was a throwback to the old intro. I messed up the timing. It was supposed to go from the countdown to the intro to me. It went from the countdown to me to the intro, then back to me, which is a complete and utter failure. In any event, I appreciate everybody for tuning in to tonight's live stream where we are going to talk about an interesting topic of when I don't know. I was gonna say when good girls go bad, but when bad girls go crazy, when crazy people do crazy shit. I don't know. It's a lot of things that we could call this, but we're gonna dive into a recent guilty verdict for Judge Sonya McKnight, who was charged and convicted of an attempted deletion. So we're gonna dive in and talk about it. As always, my name is Marcus. Here we do attorney reactions to current events, trending news, topics, all of that good stuff. Licensed attorney, 15 years in the game, defense attorney, prosecutor, investigative attorney, white collar crimes, street crimes, all sorts of crimes I've had experience with on one side of the other as an attorney, not as a defendant. Okay. And so here, just give our reaction to things and address the questions and concerns that everyone here has. As always, I'm grateful for everybody who subscribed to the channel and support. I know this is repetitive and you don't want to hear it, and somebody in the comment going to be, you talking too long on the intro. But if you get some value out of this content, I invite you to like, share, subscribe, comment. It's a free way to support the channel. And it's already getting warm here, so I got to open up this door. Give me 1 second. Don't come in here bothering me, dog. He like to come in here and bother me. Hey, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Hey, gotta represent. Hey, everybody talk about they. Hey, you can say what you want about politics, but ain't nobody going nowhere. Shout out to that. Hey, I went to war for this country, so hey, it is what it is. Shout out. That's my country, and I'm proud of it, no matter what. Just like we got family members. Sometimes they do crazy things, but you love them because that's your family. Same way, likewise. You know. So we're gonna dive into Judge Sonya McKnight. Now, this is interesting because she was convicted of an attempted murder, but this isn't the first time that she has actually pulled out a firearm and shot a lever. So we're gonna backtrack a little bit. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna talk about it because I got some notes here. I got about 2 pages of notes, so a timeline of things. Then we're gonna watch a few videos that talk about the first incident where she actually bust a cap in her husband slash soon to be ex-husband's ass, literally. Then we're going to talk about an interaction that she had with law enforcement involving her son, where she was able to finesse her way out of. And then we're going to talk about this current one. So we're dealing with Judge Sonya Baltimore McKnight. I lived in Baltimore. Hey, I love Baltimore. It's a home away from home, one of the 3 cities that I would refer to as a home city. Baltimore is definitely on that list. But Sonya Baltimore McKnight is consistent with her middle name. She doing some Baltimore shit when it comes to the gunplay. Now, again, this is the second time that she actually used a hammer on a man that she was in a relationship with. Let's see. Typically, what happens or what have happened in the past, damn, this out of order. In 2015, she was elected. In 2021, she won re-election. Now, her first incident with a gun was involving her husband slash ex-husband. Now, this is interesting because with these current charges, there are some weird things that this judge did that just makes absolutely no sense. She was arrested. She had a $300,000 bond on the current charge that she was convicted of. She was able to make that bond, and she actually went on Instagram and was bragging about being able to make that bond while she was in the club on her city girl behavior. Typically, for this type of charge, most judges probably wouldn't give you a bond. The purpose of bond is to secure a defendant's presence in court. Nah, don't stop. I just started. Get out of here. Bye. Anybody big head, get out. So typically, the bond is to secure the defendant's presence in court. If you have a history of showing up to court, normally judges won't give you a bond. But when it's violent crime at play, a lot of judges are going to err on the side of not giving you a bond. Normally, an attempted deletion, murder, attempted murder, you aren't going to get a bond. She got a $300,000 bond. She's been a judge for a long time. She was able to make that bond. That's only about $30,000 to $40,000 cash or an asset value that had to have been put up. But she did get a bond. Like I said, this was the second time that this judge who uses bad judgment has used a firearm on an individual. Now, in 2014, she was married for 2 years. The couples were in the process of getting a divorce after 2 years of marriage. Her ex-husband, or her soon-to-be ex, had spoken with his sister, and he was in the process of moving to North Carolina. This judge tried to stop him. She didn't want him to leave. She didn't want him to go to North Carolina. Okay. In 2018, he had like, you know what? I'm good. I'm ready to get out of here. Let's get out of here. In 2018, he was ready to leave. The judge stole the keys to his car. And again, the judge stole the keys to his car and as like literally drove off with this man's car. He tried to like reach in, grab the keys. He attempted to stop her, but he couldn't. And she ultimately ended up hitting a fire hydrant, destroying this dude's car. Police arrived on the scene. She started capping, lying. She told the officers that she was going to the grocery store in the car and that her husband at the time started acting violent and attempted to remove her hand from the steering wheel while she was driving. The man's sister, who he was going to relocate with in North Carolina, was present, heard the conversation. She witnessed the dispute, and she made a statement that Sonya was mad because she didn't want him to leave and go to her house, his sister's house in North Carolina. Prosecutors essentially ignored the sister's testimony and went with the judge's version of the facts. Subsequently, the judge filed for a restraining order against this man. This man actually went to jail for 15 days. He actually caught a charge and was placed on probation. While he was on probation, she made claims that he violated the probation officer, and he claimed that she kept coming to his house. She kept coming to his job. The man's co-workers actually corroborated that Sonya was coming to his job trying to reconcile the relationship. But what do you think happened? As a judge, she flexed her judicial muscle. Brother's probation was violated, and she also wanted alimony for the 2 years that they were married. He was an HVAC mechanic. Despite her being a judge for a long time, is probably likely, I don't know for sure, that she made more income than him. Quite a possibility. But she wanted some of those ends. Ultimately, the restraining order was downgraded to allow contact. Okay. At this point, when the restraining order was downgraded to allow contact, Sonya lured this man to her home, saying that she needed assistance with moving some furniture. Now, once this gentleman was in the process of removing the furniture, while he was removing the chair, Sonya ambushed him and shot him in the leg. Law enforcement officers actually justified this shooting. Now, let's go ahead and pull up this very first video. It's video, but I'm going to read through what happened. Now, there are a few things about this. The video is just the video of them at the scene where this event occurred, where she shot her husband, future ex-husband, in the ass, in the leg. Now, the words of what happened are going to go across the screen. I'm going to go ahead and read those out loud. Y'all can see them on the screen, but it may be somebody just listening and not watching. I'm going to go ahead and read those on the screen. And we're going to talk about this first instance first, because this is actually a miscarriage of justice that she's able to abuse her authority. A lot of times everybody say like, hey, man, this racial privilege. This is a situation of privilege because of her position, which is bullshit and should not have happened. So let's go ahead and cue this up. But then we're going to also talk about a valuable lesson that I told my son. And there's a lesson that my father told me and I told my son. And we're going to dive into that. So let's go ahead, check out this video. This is the home where the shooting occurred, the day of the actual shooting. that involved the husband, future ex-husband. Shooting at the district judge's home on Division in Lexington. The shooting took place at Magisterial District Judge Sonya McKnight's home on Lexington Street, sources said. There, she shot and wounded her husband. District Attorney Fran Chardo declined to identify the shooter or the person who was shot. The injuries of the man who was shot are not believed to be life-threatening, Chardo said. Chardo confirmed the shooting was related to a violation of a protection order from an abuse order. Detectives are investigating to determine whether the shooting was justified, Chardo said. After 1 p.m. Friday, investigators remained on the scene. That's a real nice looking neighborhood, too. It looked nice and quiet until she showed up doing some ratchet ass hood booger behavior. Now, that was the first shooter. Now, before we talk about the incident with the son, we have to talk about this. This is clearly a situation where her privilege has given her leverage to be able to finesse her way out of these things. If there's two people in the house, the brother is moving furniture, and according to news articles that I read, the man testified that he moved one chair out of the home. He was actually holding a second chair when he got shot in the back of the leg in the thigh area, almost in the ass. Got shot in the ass. Just from the pure nature of the shot in his position, like if you get shot in the leg and you're holding a chair, you can actually tell from the blood splatter where you were, where your hands were. Because when you get shot or stabbed, blood splatter goes everywhere. We all saw this if we watched Dexter, we know this. But they could have actually done an investigation to be able to identify the position of everybody. It was only those two there. She didn't have any bruises, any black eye. There was nothing that suggests that violence had occurred. So she clearly used her position of authority to finesse her way out of this situation. And ultimately, it led to absolutely nothing. If I'm not mistaken, I believe during the course of this, she was actually suspended for 60 days with pay while this was going on. So it's just a ridiculous situation. But now I never want to victim blame, but we have to be honest. Sometimes victims make moves that are actually not smart. I gave you all the background before the shooting happened. My father taught me this a long time ago, and I think it's a true bill. Y'all let me know if y'all think this is legit. He said, if a woman calls the police on you and nothing actually happened or was warranted to call the police on you, or she lies to the police on you, you should never see that woman again. You should move away immediately. Don't be a crash test dummy for something that could happen, because once law enforcement is involved in a domestic situation, whether it's truthful or not, it could potentially result in a guy losing his life. That's just what it is. I told my son this same lesson. If a woman calls the cops on you for no legitimate reason at all, you should leave that woman immediately. Nothing against her husband, ex-husband at the time, but bro, how much do you have to go through before you realize and get it through your head that you should not be around this woman? Honestly, he had enough information and facts to avoid this shooting. At the car incident, he ended up catching a charge. He ends up spending over 2 weeks in custody. He ends up being placed on probation. He ends up having a restraining order. The restraining order is ultimately downgraded. All of this crazy stuff that she did to you, your sister was a witness. You already see that law enforcement is riding with her. Why the hell would you go over her house to move furniture? You're a judge. You can afford it. Pay somebody else to move that shit. Dude, go to get some kids in the neighborhood. Figure out something else. Don't even call me. You shouldn't even be returning your call. So this guy put himself in a position to voluntarily become a crash test dummy when he had more than enough information to know that this person has some issue. This person is prone to lying. This person is prone to putting you in positions where you're like, if you go to jail for some BS for a lie, that person don't give a damn about you because they're willing to put your life in risk because people die in jail all the time. You did 15 days, you got a criminal record, you're on probation, all because of her, and you stupidly decided to say, yeah, you know what? Maybe you turned over a new leaf. Let me go ahead and help you out and help you move these chairs, and then you get shot in the ass. That's absolutely crazy, and I think it's ridiculous. Shout out to everybody in the comments too. Shout out to Joanne McDonald for the first comment. Shout out to Maui. I appreciate you as well. Yeah, he just got his haircut. He acting like a guy who just got his haircut, brand new. It's ridiculous. Okay, so now something happened after this. So this is a consistent buildup because husband number one, even though he purportedly was the victim, even though she beat the charges, the sister story corroborates that. We get it. He ended up getting shot. She beat those charges. It is what it is. But that happened. Now let's pivot to the situation with her son. Okay. Now in 2020, Sonya's son has gotten pulled over by the police department. Her son's a grown ass man. He was 33 years old at the time. What does he do? He calls his mother. His mother comes. Sonya removes a pill bottle from her car, and then she starts acting exactly like a city girl judge would act, and how we can expect Judge Baltimore would act. And she starts wilding out, calling for the police chief to come to the scene. Now, this instance was a little bit different because here she prohibited the officers from doing an investigation. She was ultimately charged with tampering with evidence, interfering with arrests. She was actually acquitted of all charges. She was acquitted for all charges. And during this incident, again, it was a situation where she was suspended with pay. And in true fashion, we talk about politicians who deal with the law all the time and what they do when they're in trouble. Politicians, actors, celebrities, when they're in trouble, they do a few things. They reach out to their community because they want to curry favor, and they always lean in on the church. They lean in on the religious side of the game. Hey, that's what DFD would do too, because that's the blueprint. But let's take a look at this next story. This is after she's acquitted of the charges associated with her trying to finesse her son out of a situation. She's tampering with evidence. She's impeding the investigation. How was she acquitted? I didn't even look into the facts of it, but it seems obvious just on the facts. Like, they charged her with this. What's the problem? Now, it could be one of two things. This is what I'm guessing. I don't know for certain. I'll look it up. But it could be a lot of state judges, when they have charges for misdemeanors, like a misdemeanor tampering with evidence, interfering with an arrest. A lot of states, those misdemeanors, those trials aren't done by juries. Those trials are done by a judge. The only way you get a jury trial is if you file an appeal. And the Supreme Court has held that that's constitutional. You have a right to a jury trial, but that doesn't mean that your first trial, if it's a misdemeanor, has to be a jury trial. Long as you have access to a jury trial at some point in the process, the constitutional burden is met. So what I'm guessing happened here, I'm actually going to look this up before I hop off here. But what I'm guessing, this is just my guess, because I don't see if it's an officer there to testify that there was a pill bottle in the car when they stopped them. And when she came on the scene, it was magically gone. And we damn sure didn't take it. Why would we take it and file these charges? Clearly enough evidence just on his face. But what I'm guessing or assuming this happened is this was a trial. It was a bench trial only by a judge. And I'm not saying that judge gave up a little bit of home cooking, but the judge likely gave up a little bit of home cooking. And that's how it potentially led to this acquittal. I don't see how a jury would come back with like, nah, there's not enough evidence there. Pill bottle was there. You arrive, you get belligerent. Pill bottle wasn't. I'm sure they probably actually found it on her. It wouldn't be hard to do, even if they didn't. The fact that it was there, then it's gone once you arrived. How the hell did you even get to the vehicle to be able to finesse your way into the vehicle? It's all sorts of trash going on. But let's go ahead and watch her reaction after the acquittal of the incident where she tried to help out her son, which a lot of parents would have done. But let's watch her reaction to her acquittal.
Oh, I feel great. I feel great. God is good. Yes, He's good. So I'm thankful and I'm grateful. Yes, God will yeah, He will intervene, but He will also vindicate you of all righteousness when you keep the faith and trust Him. He said, "No good thing will I withhold from you." So I'm grateful to God on this day for believing in me and knowing that I did nothing wrong. And I thank God for my attorney that He sent my way all the way from Philadelphia. I thank God for you. I thank God for you.
All right, that's enough of that. That's enough of that. She decided to lean into her religious side once things were ultimately finalized in her acquittal. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with being religious, but like, come on. Like, so these are two instances where she's exhibited hood rat goonish buffoonery behavior, and she was somehow able to leverage her way out of it by utilizing her position of authority. Etar, what's going on, brother? I appreciate you for tuning in. So now we pivot to this current situation. Now, I will tell you, after the situation with her son, somebody actually took a step to hold Judge McKnight accountable, and it was the Judicial Oversight Committee. They actually suspended her for 200 days for abusing her office, time stealing, for getting employees to commit other unethical acts. Now, while this was going on, this is where we get to the current thing. While this was going on, she was charged and arrested for the attempted murder deletion of her boyfriend, Michael McCoy. It was pretty crazy. We're going to watch a video. I'm going to give y'all the brief facts before we dive into this video. And this video is a little longer. It's about 9 to 10 minutes. We're going to take some intermittent pauses to explain some things, address any questions that pop up, and just because YouTube like us to take intermittent pauses. But long story short, again, I'm not victim blaming or anything, right? I'm not victim blaming. But I don't know, ladies, like a lot of ladies tell me all the time, like if they're dating a guy, they like just do a random Google search or something like that. There was enough information out about this judge and her behavior, whether she beat the charges or not, that should have given anyone with a little common sense cause to pause. Long story, but some guys probably be like, man, there's a judge. I came up. I don't know. Maybe if you're a bum ass guy, something you probably thought that. Not saying that Michael McCoy was that. I'm just saying that there was enough evidence where anybody who would have just Googled her name literally would have found something to been like, you know what? It's giving crazy. I don't know if I want to go down this road. Long story short, what happens, the Reader's Digest version, Sonya McCoy and Sonya McKnight and Michael McCoy were in a relationship. They were dating. As the relationship turned sour, Mr. McCoy, hey, he got a little bit smart and said, you know what? I think we should end this. This is not working out in our favor. This little thing we got, the love affairs are gone. I don't get butterflies in my stomach when you walk in a room anymore. I actually get nauseous. So he attempts to break up with her. She's living in his home. He takes her key. He thinks everything is over. One day when he comes home, what does he see? He sees Judge Sonya McKnight at his actual residence. They get into a discussion, some back and forth over the relationship. She allegedly is trying to rekindle things. He's like, nah, I'm good on you. I don't want to go down this road. This is where Mr. McCoy made a fatal flaw. She believably had an extra key because she was able to actually get into his place. But Mr. McCoy says, you know what? I'm leaving. I'm stepping out. We'll talk about this later. He leaves. When he comes back, she's in her pajamas sitting on the couch. And Mr. McCoy is just like, you know what? We'll talk about this in the morning. Now, I haven't seen anything to this, but I'm assuming, this is just me, okay? I'm assuming that a cheek clapping session occurred. I don't know if it happened or not. I'm just assuming a cheek clapping session occurred because the story is given post cheek clapping session vulnerability. Fellas, after post cheek clapper section is when you're most vulnerable to make bad decisions. Think about it. You put this woman out, you took her key, she's here. Why would you be like, you know what? You just stay because you're in your pajamas and we'll talk about this in the morning. This is just me. I'm not saying this has happened. What I think happened is exactly what he said. I think that when he came back, she was in the house on the couch in her, he says pajamas. I'm going to say probably nightgown or some lingerie or something to that effect. He says, you know what? We'll talk about this in the morning. He goes off and goes to sleep. That doesn't sound plausible to me. To me, just hearing the story, it sounds weird because I'm going to keep my same energy. Like, no, you should be here. You should be gone when I get back. If I get back and you still here, we're going to have a problem. But I'm thinking, I don't know if this happened. This is just me looking at it objectively. He get back. He see her in the lingerie, potentially, allegedly, hypothetically on the couch. He goes to sleep. The reason he goes to sleep is because now he's vulnerable. He's not thinking with the right head. He lays down, dozes off, and thinks that, we'll wake up and figure it out in the morning and I get her up out of there. Unbeknownst to him, he ends up being shot. They were the only ones in the house. And that's how we get to this conviction right here. Fortunately for him, he was actually able to survive the shooting, and he actually, testified on trial against her, which was outstanding. It was the way that the legal system and the criminal justice system has been treating her behavior in the past. I'm going to be honest. If this gentleman would have passed away, I don't even have the confidence that a real life investigation into the facts would have been done, considering how she's been allowed to skate and finesse her way through the criminal justice system in this county where she resides. That's just me. Now let's take a look at this next video. It's a little bit longer, but we're going to go into more detail about what happened at trial with intermittent pauses. Let's get it.
Cannot state with any more emphasis that I disagree with the judgment that they made. Ms. McKnight will absolutely be appealing this. She did not attempt to kill Mr. McCoy.
That sounds kind of just not believable. Just hearing it's only them two in the house, and the guy testified that he didn't shoot himself. I mean, the jury don't got to be a bunch of rocket scientists to figure this one out. Jurors are very smart. They're made up of people with common sense who can use inferences and come to rational conclusions for the most part.
Thank you.
Former Dauphin County Judge Sonya McKnight has been found guilty of attempting to kill her ex-boyfriend by shooting him in the head while he slept. We appreciate you joining us tonight at 6. I'm TJ Anthony. This morning, the courthouse right behind me, the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before finding McKnight guilty.
Bro, suit is wild. Those stripes is too
first
big.
Degree attempted murder and aggravated assault. So she will be sentenced in May. But to take you through the past 3 days of proceedings, we have live team coverage tonight. CBS 21's Jasmine Brooks and Elise Persons are right outside of the Dauphin County Courthouse with the aftermath of this verdict. And guys, a lot of eyes were watching this case closely.
Yes, that's right. Now, Elise has been covering this since day one. TJ, thank you so much. And so key takeaways from today, Elise.
Yeah, so today kicked off with the judge explaining to the jury how they would be kind of handling these jury deliberations, what they should know, the rules about it, if you would. But one thing that I found very, very interesting in the explanation of how the jury should head into the deliberation room is he talked about how Sonya McKnight did not get on the stand.
This is actually, I think, a mistake made by the judge. Strategy is the attorney's choice. When you come to me as a client and I sit down and listen to your client, it's up to me to determine what the best legal strategy is. I can get input for you, but I'm the subject matter expert who can figure out the best argument that you can make to potentially so you don't have to go away and get your toothbrush. Now, if a defendant wants to testify, it's completely up to the defendant. I've had cases where I said, yo, don't testify, you're going to be guilty. It's cross-examination is different. I could bring you in after court, sit you on the stand, and we can run through these mock cross-examinations. And if I'm slaughtering you in practice, what you think they're going to do when the stage is big? It's going to be 10 times worse because it's just more pressure. There's other eyes on you. It's just going to be terrible. So you can try to prep it, but if the defendant wants to testify, you can't stop him. If a defendant wants to testify, you say, hey, you shouldn't testify. You're not going to testify. He subsequently found guilty, didn't testify. If he files a complaint saying that I wanted to testify and my attorney told me I couldn't, so I didn't because of him, you are going to risk losing your law license. But I think this right here was, now, I'll put a caveat by saying it may have been something that was judicially required, but I've never seen it in my years of having trials, and I've had probably 100 at least trials throughout my career. I've never seen a judge explain this, and I think by explaining this, it actually made the jury consider it more, which was the opposite of what the judge intended.
The explanation of how the jury should head into the deliberation room is he talked about how Sonya McKnight did not get on the stand. So, Michael McCoy, the man that, Sonya is now accused of shooting the head, he took the stand yesterday, but McKnight never did. And the judge told the jury that is not evidence against McKnight. This is not something that you can hold against her.
I think actually telling them that was worse than not saying nothing. If anything, the judge doesn't have that obligation to tell. That's actually something that's going to be talked about in the beginning, maybe during open arguments, open remarks, maybe during closing remarks. But I think the judge telling the jury, hey, the fact that she didn't testify is not, hey, jury over there, hey, I know y'all heard all this evidence, but the fact that she didn't testify, you all aren't supposed to consider that as it relates to her guilt. I actually think him telling them that made the opposite. Because if I didn't know that was a thing, I'd be like, wait, why didn't she testify? If you didn't do it, why you didn't get up there and say you didn't do it? So I think that was a mistake. It could be a requirement in this jurisdiction. I've had trials in several states throughout the United States. Never had I had a judge tell the jury that. That's something that was a known, and it was something that was said in either opening or closing remarks by one side or another. Normally, the defense brings it up. The defense will say something to that effect, but the judge bringing it up is kind of odd.
Closing arguments. Can you talk about what the DA said?
Yeah, so the DA, he started his closing arguments sitting down, and he says, looks at the jury, says, typically you go to sleep and you'll have a nightmare. You wake up from it and it's over. He said Michael McCoy on February 10th, 2024, he woke up to the nightmare. He detailed how, this was a heinous crime committed by Sonya McKnight. He asked the jury to put one and one together to come to the conclusion who shot him, and take a listen to him explaining what that sounded like.
Using your common sense, that's what I urge the jurors to do. There were two people in that house, and only two people in that house. And one of them, the one who was shot, said he did not shoot himself. The logical conclusion is the other person did it.
Elementary, my dear Watson. I agree with him. Very simple case. Only two people there. I'm glad the judge couldn't finesse her way out of this, but I think that was a very simple way to put it, and that's a very simple way to cultivate the argument.
And I'm glad the jury ultimately saw the truth in that statement, and they found her guilty on all charges here today.
Elise, you spent hours inside the courtroom over the past 3 days, so a lot to get to and unpack.
Yeah, so this trial was jam-packed. The jury came from Delaware County, so really it seemed like they were trying to get as much into the day as possible.
Now I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all. I haven't watched this entire video, but because it's 10 minutes, I'm sure they're gonna cover it. There are two things that are actually interesting. I want you all to pay attention, and if they don't cover it, I'll cover it when it ends, when this video ends. Gunshot residue. Gunshot residue is once you shoot a firearm, it's on your hand. When you wash your hands, it doesn't help. And I'm not telling nobody how to get rid of gunshot residue, but people actually do a disservice because when you shoot a gun, they go wash their hands and they wash their hands in like warm water, and that actually makes it worse because it kind of like your pores open up and it absorbs into your skin. So like if you like run a range in the military or you're around a lot of ammunition, you're actually like taught to wash your hand with cold water because you don't want those pores to open up and that gunpowder residue to actually seek in your skin. But listen to the explanation with the gunshot residue and what she did to try to conceal or manipulate, in my opinion, the evidence and her actual crime.
The trial kicked off Monday. We were in the courtroom from 9 a.m. until 9:15 p.m., just taking one lunch break, one morning break, one afternoon break. And then yesterday, Tuesday, was day 2 of the trial, kicked off at 9 a.m. and we got out around 4:45 after those closing arguments. So it was a jam-packed couple of days. Take a listen to the recap. After 3 days, 24 witnesses, and 50 pieces of evidence, suspended Dauphin County Judge Sonya McKnight has been found guilty of first-degree attempted murder and aggravated assault for.
Shout out to the jury for getting it right. Real quick, hey, shout out to my guy E. Todd. I appreciate you for being a friend of the channel, and I'm very appreciative of this. Thank you for sharing your professional knowledge on great subjects. Thank you for your service for the free. Hey, I appreciate that, brother. Thank you very much. Thank everybody in the chat, but I wanted to give you a big shout out because I never asked for super chats, but I'm very humble and appreciative when someone sends one. So thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Shooting her ex-boyfriend, Michael McCoy, in the head while he was sleeping in the early morning hours of February 10th, 2024. The jury reached their verdict in less than 2 hours. McKnight's bail was set.
Less than 2 hours is fast as hell. 2 hours for a verdict for an attempted murder is fast. Like, I think the longest I've had a jury be out in deliberations was probably 3 days, not counting Saturday and Sunday. Normally, if the jury comes back too fast, that was when I was a defense attorney, I'd be like, oh shit. if I see the bailiff come, the jury's reached a decision, and if you see me look at my watch, I'll be like, uh-oh. 2 hours is not good. Normally, when they get to 4 hours, they're back there mulling it over and thinking about it. 3 hours is people saying like, okay, who's the foreman? Okay, yeah, like 2 hours is fast as hell. So that's normally a bad sign for the defense.
That at $3 million, and she was taken immediately to the Dauphin County Prison. It was a jam-packed trial beginning Monday morning at 9 a.m. The jury heard from 17 witnesses throughout the day on Monday, including Susquehanna Police Department patrol officers and detectives, the EMS crews that treated McCoy, and forensic experts. Throughout the trial, body cam footage was showed recapping the minutes after police arrived at McCoy's home and up to police interviews with McCoy the day after the shooting. Gunshot residue was brought up frequently throughout the trial. A forensic scientist took the stand to break down her analysis of the gunshot residue tested in this case. She found McCoy's clothing and hands tested positive for having the maximum amount of gunshot residue present, whereas McKnight's pajama shorts, a singular sock, her robe, and one part of her hand tested positive for gunshot residue. Officers testified Monday morning McKnight washed her hands and dropped her shirt in the toilet before being tested for gunshot residue.
Really? This is utterly ridiculous. I'm actually like, real talk. Hold up, real talk. Let me go to my. We need to do this. Real talk. I am very happy and proud that justice was served here because this lady skated for far too long. And it goes to show you that she was still on her BS trying to finesse the GSR results, which was crazy. So she deserves everything that's coming to her. I actually hope that the judge throws the book at her. Attempted murder, she should probably be gone the rest of her life. I think she's in her 50s, if I'm not mistaken. Bye, Felicia. Get to going. You are a menace to society, and you are a menace to society who actually had some power, which is absolutely even more dangerous in my opinion. Let's run back what she did and what officers said she did before she got tested for the GSR gunshot residue.
Pajama shorts, a singular sock.
Okay, remember, they said pajama shorts. She had on pajama shorts, a singular sock. I think the reason he went in that room and went to sleep is because when he came back and she was on that couch in them shorts, y'all ladies know how y'all sit on the couch when y'all want to finesse us, legs crossed, that little piece of baby thigh hanging out. I think that he was thinking with the wrong head, went in there and dozed off. Then she shot him in the head. That's exactly what I think happened, even though that wasn't brought up.
Of gunshot residue present. Whereas McKnight's pajama, a forensic scientist, took the stand to break down her analysis of the gunshot residue tested in this case. She found McCoy's clothing and hands tested positive for having the maximum amount of gunshot residue present. Whereas McKnight's pajama shorts, a singular sock, her robe, and one part of her hand tested positive for gunshot residue. Officers testified Monday morning.
Now, why do y'all think that is? McCoy had maximum gunshot residue on his hands, maximum gunshot residue on his clothes. She only had it on one hand. You like, well, he had most of it on his hand. Maybe he did it. What I suspect is happening. Nah, I can't show it. But when you fire a gun, all that gunshot residue just backtrack. I think why this guy, how did he get gunshot residue on his hand? Now, it depends on the way he was sleeping. From the reports, it appears to me that he was sleeping maybe like on his stomach or kind of canted on his side. But I think after that shot went off and she realized like, whoa, this guy didn't die, I think it was an effort to probably make this look like a suicide. What else could you do? If it's only two people in the house, one person is shot. If I shot this person, the only argument I got is he shot himself. So I'm assuming there probably was manipulation of the gun in his hand to try to do a transfer of residue from one person to the next. I don't know how effective that is, but I think there was clearly some finessing going on to try to manipulate the evidence to make it appear as if it was a suicide. Because that's the only argument she can make. Casper the Friendly Ghost damn sure didn't do it. Why did she have it on one hand? Because she probably did what most people do. If she was close to him, it was just probably a point and pull. The only way you're like this with a proper hand and a proper aim is because you're actually aiming at a target that's a distance away. If someone's so close, you're just going to point shoot. So that's why she had it on that one hand. That's my thought.
McKnight washed her hands and dropped her shirt in the toilet before being tested for gunshot residue. Day 2 of the trial kicked off with McCoy's doctors at Hershey Medical Center testifying about the severity of his injuries. His trauma surgeon the night of the shooting said if the bullet went in a different trajectory by just a matter of centimeters, this would have been a very different outcome. On Tuesday, McCoy took the stand for the first time, and he touched on the year-long relationship with McKnight, saying, quote, "There were always problems." He says,
again, I'm not victim blaming here. But bro, a simple Google search of this judge would have showed you a shitload of red flags, pardon my language, that would have given you cause to pause for going into this relationship. Husband number one decided to be a crash test dummy after he had all of these cues and knew damn well he shouldn't have been to a house. I'm not victim blaming. Everything is her fault, but literally one Google search of this judge's name would have yielded you results where it would have given you enough information to at least make an informed decision. In my opinion,
he made it clear to
if it's a judge, why wouldn't you Google a judge if you're dating like a judge? Like, I don't know.
McKnight on Friday, February 9th, 2024, he was serious. The relationship was over. He then went to sleep. He says he woke up with excruciating pain. On the stand,
Hey, that's a good point. That's a good point. It could have been from fighting from a gun. I don't know. I don't know if it was fighting for a gun because I don't know how the fact that he was still conscious and can remember all of this. I don't know if he would have had the physical dexterity and the mental awareness to be able to fight to try to get the gun out of the hand. And if you're fighting to get the gun out of hand, even if you are, I think at that point, there would have been a transfer of blood that would have been so significant from one person to another. Now, I haven't watched all this, so they may say that there was a significant transfer of blood. But I'm thinking if you get shot in the head, the more realistic scenario is that that person is going to be down and out for the count. He might have been grabbing his head, but I don't know if he would have had the bandwidth to be able to get in a tussle like that. We're going to see. We're going to see.
He said, quote, "I thought I was having a brain aneurysm. I thought my brain was trying to get out of my head." He testified he was the one who asked McKnight to call 911 in the early hours of Saturday morning and was shocked to later learn he had been shot in the head. When asked if he shot himself, McCoy answered no. He says, "I don't know who shot me, but I didn't shoot myself."
McCoy on that bullshit. I'd have been like, that bitch, pardon my language. Like, if it's just us two in the house, like, I'm like, nah, I don't need, no. Did you shoot yourself? No, I ain't shoot myself. She did. There wasn't nobody else in there. Yeah, you got to be direct, man. When some shit like that happen, you got to be direct. You can't mince your words. You got to use a little bit of common sense like this jury used common sense. I'm going to be honest, like, I'm actually shocked. You all let me know, but I'm actually shocked that she didn't shoot him again. I'm shocked that she didn't shoot him again, but I'm shocked that she didn't shoot him again, but it makes sense when I think about it why she didn't. Because if it's only those two in the house, the only argument that she can make is that it was a suicide. This is just, I'm trying to think like a criminal here. The only argument she can make that it was a suicide. She shoot him. She sees that she's unsuccessful. Another shot clearly shows that it's not a suicide, and she doesn't have a rat's chance. She just has no chance. She has no chance to actually make an argument for a suicide. However, if she doesn't shoot him, it's probably potentially going to be more favorable. She's probably thinking, man, maybe it'll be significant brain damage and trauma. Maybe he won't remember what happened. Maybe I can convince him that he actually did shoot himself after we had a conversation about the relationship. So she's, in my opinion, evil enough where she could have shot him, but I think she tried to be smart about it to realize that if I shoot him again, I'm going to have no way out. If he has some type of severe trauma, maybe if I could use my position to leverage the criminal justice system, finesse somebody, maybe I could figure out a way to weasel my way out of this. But yeah, she definitely was evil enough to shoot him again. I'm glad that she didn't, because I'm glad that the guy is still here, but this is insane. Yeah, exactly. That's why. But that's the only story she had, and once he survived, it was completely implausible. And I'm actually interested. I wonder if they're going to tell it like specifically where the shot was, because I mean, I've seen a lot of terrible crimes occur, and typically a suicide by firearm occurs in one or two places. It's either this direction or, what you normally see in the movie theaters where they put it to the side of the head. So if it was an angle that was slightly off, I'm interested where the entry wound was at the time. I'm interested where the entry wound was at the time.
Tuesday afternoon, McKnight told the judge she would not be taking the witness stand. Her defense lawyer called for the case to be thrown out. Request was denied. McKnight's lawyer told the jury the Commonwealth did not provide enough evidence to meet the burden of proof and to find McKnight not guilty. Whereas the Commonwealth asked the jury to piece all the evidence together and come to the conclusion McKnight was the one who pulled the trigger. He said to the jury, quote, "When you apply your common sense to this case, the only person who could have committed this crime is right here," McCormick said, pointing at McKnight. And in under 2 hours Wednesday morning, the jury came to that decision, finding Sonya McKnight guilty on 2 felony charges.
Okay, so because you were in the courtroom and cameras weren't allowed, you really can give us firsthand experience of what you saw. I want to know what McCoy did when that verdict was read today.
So I was watching him closely as the guilty verdict came in, and he was sitting in the front row behind the Commonwealth, behind the prosecution, and there was a small ledge right there in the front row. And as they read guilty, he put his head down, slightly, and kind of up and down with his head, pounded lightly that ledge a little bit, seemingly in a relief and a victory sensation. So really, just a moment to see in person.
How about Sonya McKnight?
Sonya McKnight, her back was to us. She kept her eyes seemingly on the judge. And I was looking for any sign of emotion, if you would, looking at her shoulders, and I didn't see anything. It wasn't until she was walked out of the courtroom in cuffs that I finally got to see her face. And it was pretty expressionless, I would say.
Also, she had to take off all her jewelry, hand her purse over to her family. Talk about that.
Yeah.
Somebody who had so much power kind of in that moment, stripping their sense of identity in a way.
Right. I mean, it was really interesting because as the jury went into the deliberation room, I was watching to see what Sonya would do in that time while they were in there. She was able to be on her phone. She was sitting there interacting with family members. But once that guilty verdict came in, she had to stand up. She started by removing her earrings. One of the court officers helped her remove her necklaces. All of that jewelry, along with her purse, was then handed over to her family, which she then put, her hands behind her back and walked out of that
In
courtroom.
a way, it was the moment her freedom was stripped from.
Now, real quick, justice was served here, but I want y'all opinion on this, and y'all let me know what y'all think. Okay, typically what happens when you have a trial, your client is found guilty, the general rule is you can file a notice of appeal immediately. Right after the verdict's read, Your Honor, I like to provide a notice of appeal on behalf of my client. The judge will make note of it. The appeal is filed. From a practical standpoint, I was taught never file a notice of appeal in court after the verdict is read, because it wouldn't happen for this because this is a serious charge. But if it was something like a misdemeanor, if the client was found guilty of possession of less than a half an ounce of marijuana and they I want to appeal it, I'd be like, okay, don't worry about it. If you're going to walk out of here, you just got probation. Let's walk out of here. You got 10 days to file the appeal. I'll file the notice appeal on day 8 or 9. Because the reason you don't want to file a notice of appeal for lower level misdemeanors in open court, because the judge could put an appeal bond on. And so let's say a person is going into custody for that small charge. The judge can say, hey, I'm putting an appeal bond on, and you have to remain in custody unless you pay that bond associated with that appeal. So she probably won't. I don't even think there's no way in the world she'll get an appeal bond, but I don't know. She's been able to manipulate this system before. She was charged with attempted murder and actually got a $300,000 bond, which everybody knew she could make. I don't think she should have been entitled to that. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Yeah, I agree with that. Whenever I have been in a breakup, the last place I want to rest my head or close my eyes for the night is the same house, same bed or house. I agree with that 100%. But she took his life force and he was just in there knocked out. He wasn't thinking, literally.
From her and taken from her. Also, McCoy was able to watch all that happen. What was happening as she was leaving the courtroom?
So I watched McCoy throughout the trial to see if he would look at McKnight while he was on the stand. I didn't see him look over at McKnight once, almost seemingly avoiding to look at her at all. But as she was being walked out of the courtroom, you could see his eyes following her very closely and his head nodding up and down as she exited that courtroom in handcuffs.
Also, a new mugshot that we got within the last 2 hours.
Yeah, so that is newly released, and it's an interesting, picture that is accompanied on her crime watch announcing the charges. It's one of her smiling quite big. Definitely something that was surprising to see, if you would.
That is I call that's what I would do if I ever had a mugshot. I call that the Pablo Escobar mugshot. You might as well just say cheese for the camera and smile and make it a good picture. That's the best thing you could do.
Something that will, as you mentioned earlier, live on forever. As of right now on that crime watch with the, pinned note, Sonya McKnight charged with, attempted murder.
Now, she was out of prison.
All right, we started this show off by talking about a lesson my father taught me that I taught my son. The second lesson my father said, another lesson that Papa DFD told me is, hey, I don't care how good your relationship is, make sure you got enough money stashed away for your own apartment. I'm just saying this. Hey, at the time he said it, I was like, huh? But I'm like, as I've gotten older, I was like, you know what? My dad was kind of a wise sage from time to time. I agree with that. Make sure you have your own ish while dating. I agree with that 100%. Smart man. Definitely, definitely.
Up until now, what did the judge do when it comes to her bail to get her in prison now?
So her initial bail was set at
We're talking about it now.
$300,000, which she
Bail
originally
bond.
posted,
Right.
allowing her out until
Yes.
today. But the judge increased her bail to $3 million. And when he made that announcement, if you would, you could hear an audible gasp in the courtroom.
Wow. All right. Well, how did we?
She can make that. She can make $300,000 to $400,000. I'm sure she got enough property and assets, $300,000 in total, if she really wanted to get out of custody. So he did. There is an appeal bond on there. This dude. I'm not playing this right now. I'm putting it up. Not right now. This dude just keep bringing me this drink. He tell me when he ready to play. Hold on, I'm almost done. Okay. Man, this dude's ridiculous.
We get here because this conviction seems like kind of a conclusion, if you will, to a streak of McKnight's trouble with the law. So we want to kind of take you back to 2019 when she was investigated by the AG's office for shooting her estranged husband at her Harrisburg home and was put on leave. Eventually, she was cleared with the AG's office, Elise, citing self-defense because she did have a PFA against him.
Yeah, so then in 2020, McKnight faced multiple charges, including tampering with evidence, after she was accused of trying to influence the police after the arrest of her son. She was acquitted of all counts in that case in 2021, but then in 2023, McKnight was suspended without pay by the Pennsylvania Judicial Council, Conduct Board, I should say, on allegations this time of theft and other issues such as refusing to recuse herself from cases.
She's a hot mess.
One involving a Harrisburg police officer involved in her 2020 arrest, as well as not showing up to work.
Elise, what comes next?
So next will be McKnight's sentencing hearing. She's currently at the Dauphin County Prison, but May 28th, 9 a.m., she will be right back here at the Dauphin County Courthouse in the same courtroom that she was found guilty of these charges to find out how long she will be serving time in state prison.
Okay, so real quick, two things on this report that I see are inaccurate. Yeah, that lady batshit crazy. Two things. I guess point number one, she's not at the Dauphin County jail. They actually transferred her to a jail the next county over. Well, why would they do that? As a security precaution. She served as a judge in that county. She probably is responsible for a lot of people going to jail. She probably handed out a lot of guilty verdicts, and all the deference and finessing that she wanted the criminal justice system to show her, she definitely didn't afford that shit to anybody else. So as a security precaution, anytime law enforcement in a county is going to jail, they transfer them a couple of counties over as a safety precaution. I actually seen this happen when I was a young defense attorney. The chief prosecutor, the district attorney, the district attorney before I got there, I don't know if y'all remember Mike Nifong, the whole Duke Lacrosse bogus assault allegations. Mike Nifong, he actually went into custody and they had to give him his entire wing in the prison to be able to isolate him. Because what do you think they're going to do to the district attorney who was responsible for everybody who was actually in the prison, the jail in the county? So she's at a different county as a safety precaution. That's point number one. Point number two, the maximum sentence that she's looking at is 60 years. And I'm just going to be honest. I don't see any mitigating factor like, oh, she has ties to the community. She was cooperative. I don't see any mitigating factor that you could potentially say that would make me, if I were the judge, give her anything less than the max. I'm maxing you out because you're smart enough to know better. You thought you were slick. You tried to evade the throwing your clothes and shit in the toilet and all sorts of goofy stuff. So I'm assuming that the legal system is probably embarrassed and tired of her. So I wouldn't be shocked if they actually maxed her out, even if they don't max her out with 60 years. Hell, maxing her out with 30 is essentially the same difference, probably. The final thing is, and this is a question, well, how does this impact all of the cases that she presided over? Now, I'm telling you right now, if I'm a defense attorney and I had a client who was in front of her, I'm going back through that case, through those proceedings with a fine tooth comb to see if there's any evidence that I could find or anything that I could find where I can make any type of argument that the judge may have been biased, may have been unfair, not impartial, like anything that I can find. Once you're in law enforcement and you have this stain over your head, it's actually like gonna be, it's like a kid in a candy store for former defense attorneys or former clients looking for any reason to appeal their case. And some of the reasons may or may not be justified. They may make up something, but because she has this conviction, because she has this history, something that could be made up as a reason to get a new trial may have some validity because she just has this huge ass stain. So I think this was a absolutely crazy ass fact pattern. I think that it was a kudos to the jury for actually getting it right. And I think the biggest thing is I'm actually happy that prosecutors, law enforcement, everybody worked collectively together to make sure they sealed the deal on this one. Because for so long, since 2018, they've been on that BS. They've been letting her slide because she was one of the good old boys. And there is whether you're a defense attorney, prosecutor, judge, like no one wants to see anyone who is in the court family, so to speak, kind of get screwed over. So there could be some bias there. Like if someone was charged with breaking and entering and the victim was a clerk of the court, those clerks are in there with them judges every day. The clerk is a judge's best friend and the best asset they have in the courtroom. Those judges are going to beat that guy over the head when it comes to sentencing. So I think that she leaned in on the camaraderie in her role to get what the hell she wanted, and it got her out of shooting somebody in the ass. That's actually crazy. So the big takeaway from this is, hey, don't set yourself up to be a crash test dummy. When someone shows you who they are, believe them, okay? When they show you who they are, when they purposely do things that can put your life at risk, you should probably stay the hell away from that person at all costs. Let's see. Will they open up her old case? Yeah. So all of those cases are going to get looked at. This is actually less of an issue, though, than if a judge, like, let's say, took a bribe or something like that. Even though both a judge being convicted of bribery and a judge being convicted of attempted murder, both are bad, both are terrible. But the bribery conviction is something that directly points to a judge's impartiality. Are they operating in fairness? Now, on the other side, even though an attempted murder isn't that type of crime that directly points to an impartiality, it does go towards a lack of judgment. It goes towards an inability to make a rational decision. And people are going to go through their cases, and if they can find even one nugget, or like, I mean, let's just be honest. If I were a defendant, I would just make something up. I'd be like, oh man, me and the judge. What if some former defendant who she charged said, me and the judge had a love affair and it didn't work out well, and because I broke up with her, she was like, I'm gonna make sure I screw you over despite the evidence to the contrary. If somebody says something like that, everybody gonna probably be like, I don't believe it. But because of these allegations, because of the context with which this history of events occurred, love or scorn, she does something to fuck him over. Love or scorn, she does something to screw him over. If a former defendant in front of her said that, people are going to probably be like, it's possible. We got to look at it. Will they order a new trial? I don't know, but it's quite a possibility. Yeah. Alpha female. Most women leave firearms to men. Most women resort to vandalism stuff. Yeah. Like, I mean, a woman, yeah, I agree. It's rare. Like, you more likely to get like a woman pull an Al Green on you. Y'all remember Al Green? I think girlfriend or wife do like some hot ass grits on him while he was asleep. That's like a woman thing right there. Because them burn marks gonna be with you forever. Like, and not saying deletion doesn't happen by firearm in relationships, but it's definitely, I agree with your point on that one, Joanne. It's definitely not at the rate with which it is when it comes to men. Let's see. She is undateable. She is undateable. She should not be out amongst people. That's actually a good question. I'll be honest. I don't know the answer to that. But one, you gave me an idea for I can do a quick 5-minute pre-recorded video. I would honestly probably say interesting. I would probably say likely yes, but I don't know. I gotta look. I would probably likely say yes because I can just speak from experience. I haven't seen any provision in the language that establishes a person's pension for employment, or at least any employment that I had or anybody I know and asked me a question on. I haven't seen any language that says a conviction of a crime is either absolute bar or reduces the amount of the pension. Now, I'm not saying those don't exist. And if they actually do exist, it would actually be smart to have that contract and have that language in the contract. But that's actually a damn good question. Now I'm going to have to see if I can get to the bottom of it. Man, if you don't get out of here with that tomfoolery, somebody boot this Yahoo. All right, let's see. Although more women are killing their spouses these days. Yeah, women know, hey, I don't know why. Like, I like watching that show, like Deadly Women, Wives with Knives, Women Who Kill, all of those type of things. And like women, typically very few percentage-wise use firearms. Most times when a firearm is involved, this is just from what I've seen. I'm not saying this is all the case, but I watch all those ID Investigation Discovery. Shout out to them. I watch a lot of those shows. A lot of times when firearms are used, it's used as a woman would manipulate another individual to carry out the deletion with the firearm. That's what I normally see. I don't know statistically if that's mostly how it happened, but that's what I normally see. Or I've seen other methods that are just as wild, like poisoning or something crazy like that. But definitely happens, not as a higher rate as men are doing. Yeah, I know. Now I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up and find it out and get to the bottom of it. I don't, because I don't think so. Like, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't think so. Because that would be like it would be like some type of Slayer statute. Like, y'all know sometimes like insurance policies have Slayer statutes where like, oh, if you kill us yourself or set something up, you are barred from getting the payouts of this insurance policy. And I don't know if a statute or language like that exists in that type of contract. Wives with Knives. Hey, I be watching all those shows. This story will be on Snap 100%. 100%. Yo, that's it for this video. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate y'all time and everybody who participated and allows me to have a few moments of y'all time to go over these stories. I actually had another story that I wanted to cover, but I didn't have time. I was going to actually do it as a prerequisite to this story of how with age doesn't necessarily come wisdom. And that applies in this case. And I might do a pre-recorded video on that and drop it for the members early. That's probably what I'll do. As always, I appreciate everybody for everything. Y'all have a good, safe night. Be blessed. I love y'all and thank you. Peace.